Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Me4 Matters. Now, today's a very special Me4 Matters. Not only have the brilliant panel managed to slog across London and get here without the tube, so thank you for that, everybody. It's also the first Me4 Matters with our wonderful partners here at Talon. So, Naren, you've been building out a partner programme with Media4All this year. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of organisations who have reached out wanting to help us, with kind of funding, but also just sharing learnings. And Talon kind of were one of the first businesses to reach out, and they've been sponsors for about 8 or 9 months now. So really happy, really excited about this.
Very excited. So it's absolutely the start of a new thing, and we're really excited to be here in Talon's office. And hello, lovely people who have made it in as well. I don't know how you're getting home. Good luck. The rain is coming. Probably to be a little bit, look, the whole of today's going to be serious, but to be a little bit serious, I just wanted to, we wanted to mention the awful events that are happening over in Ukraine at the moment, and I think it'd be remiss of me if I didn't mention that. And obviously it's horrific. It feels like something that's very close, feels quite far away. I've had people ask me, well, what can we do? We can't do anything. There's tons and tons and tons that you can do. So what you can do, you can get online, and there are lots of places you can donate. There's lots of places where you can offer advocacy. There's people that can talk about this a lot more educated than I, and there are things we can do. So definitely look into that and think about how we as a society can help out what's happening there. It's awful. The other thing I should mention, Diana, NABS are obviously there from a mental health perspective, and I'm sure we've got lots of Ukrainian colleagues, friends, family around us who also probably are tapping up the... do you want to talk a little bit about what NABS are doing?
Just to say, obviously we're here to support anybody who works in the industry, and that can be anything, whether work-related or personal-related, career-related. So if anything's going on that's causing people trouble and they just want to just talk something through, we're listening here, we're completely confidential, private, and it just means there's someone there to help and chat. And actually, if you just get a bit stuck maybe with the career and just want a bit more help on that regard, then coaching is there as well. So it's sort of emergency service and a bit of development, help people over a bump.
Thanks, Diana. And I know at the moment with those things that are happening, people are feeling a bit unsure, a bit of anxiety. That's definitely what the guys at NABS are there for. So on to today. We're here to talk about why aren't there enough people of colour in outdoor. I'd probably say why aren't there enough people of colour in advertising, in media, in marketing, in lots of jobs across the country of people of importance. There just aren't there, and that's what we're here to talk about today. But let me just tell you a little bit about Media4All first. So Media4All was set up by this guy, who 2018 was it, Naren?
Yeah. Right, yeah.
2018, Naren sat there. I'm not sure I need my notes for this. I don't have enough time. So Naren sat down and looked around and thought, there aren't enough people that look like me in the industry. There's lots of people. It's an industry that recruits from people we know, and therefore we end up with people around us that all look the same and come from the same backgrounds. And we know that good business is business with equality, lots of diversity, lots of difference of opinion, of thought, of mind, of colour, and that's what Media4All was set up to do, to challenge that and to change that. We've got 3 things that we're about. We're about recruiting, so it's 3 R's, we're in media, so we do have 3 pillars. It's about recruiting the right people into the industry. So again, not a lot of people know what it is we do. My mum still doesn't understand what media is. Sometimes I don't understand what media is, but there's not an industry that people make a beeline for. It's not something people go, I'm going to go and do that, I'm going to go and get into that. So we need to make it a more welcoming and accepting industry to get into. So that's recruit. Retain. What we do know is that people of colour, when they get into advertising, are more likely to churn. They come here, it's not necessarily set up for them. Their lived experience is, it sounds awfully serious language, but that lived experience isn't the same as their white colleagues. Therefore, they don't enjoy it as much, and therefore they leave, and they don't stay around. And then the last thing we're talking about is rise. So how do we make sure that people of colour who come into the industry can get on? So they stay, they enjoy, they move forward, they get on, and they move forward. So again, the 3 R's are really important to us: recruit, retain, and rise. And again, that's the thing that's going to come through this Talon sponsored panel today: is what is going on in outdoor? How do we challenge it, and how do we change it? I think they're the main things I wanted to touch on. It's really warm in here, isn't it? I'm like, Liam, calm down. What else shall I talk about? So Me4 Matters was set up as a bit of an open platform where people could chat. So a couple of years ago, lots of terrible things happening in the world. They're still happening. We decided that what we wanted to do is create this platform where we could get together and ask difficult questions, right? All of us, definitely Naren, will say the wrong thing from time to time. They don't know how to have the right conversation. They don't know, should I say, oh, do I say black? Do I say, look, no one will always get it right. And we think if people are coming from a place of authenticity, that's really important. People can come from a place and go, I don't know, I'm not sure. So Me for Matters was set up as a panel where we could start to have some of those conversations. We've been doing them for 2 years, and today's really exciting because I think we're going to get into really interesting topics. I think I should probably start. Oh, the one thing, Sarah from Talon has dropped into the comments the NABS helpline. So occasionally you touch on things that might be triggering or make you think, oh, actually, I don't know, that happened to me. What do I do about it? The NABS helpline is absolutely there for that. So there's a website, there's a helpline. Jump on and have a look there. We should do some introductions. I'm going to make everyone introduce themselves because I've talked for too long already. So why don't you start, Asia? Tell us who you are and where you come from.
So my name's Asia Ray. I work at Talon as a client manager.
Perfect, thank you. How long have you been here?
I've been here 2 years.
Awesome, and I've walked around the office there and I see your picture, Star of the Month. It sounds like you're doing brilliantly. It's awesome. Naren, we've introduced you. Tell us a bit more though. Tell us about what's this?
Well, so kind of Naren formed Media for All 2018. It's definitely gone great guns, bigger than I ever imagined or planned really. But before that, 30 years in outdoor. Kind of love being back at Talon really.
They call you the Godfather of outdoors. Is that right? Team from Talon? Is
Hope not.
They're all shaking their head. No.
Makes it sound a bit old.
I don't know. Diana, tell us.
Yeah, well, thanks. You already sort of given me a little bit of a head start. So Diana Tickell, CEO of NABS. I've been running NABS for 7 years, but I've got an experience in charity and agencies. I've done the account handling jobs, etc. So it's been brilliant running the organisation, which exists to support everybody who's in our industry. And as we've said, here to help. And I've been on the panel a few times. So
you're a
kind
regular.
of consider myself a regular.
And you're about to move on to...
Yes, I'm going
right?
to take life a bit easier. That's the plan.
We know you never do that.
She says.
All right, well, thank you for joining today. Barry, you're the person that, when I said, who's Barry around the show, you will hear him before you see him. That's how people normally talk about me. Tell us a bit about yourself, Barry. Why are you here? Why is MIFA important? Why did you partner with us?
That's harsh but fair, your first comment. I'm Barry Couples, I'm the Group CEO here at Talon. MIFA is important to me quite literally because I grew up in West London in Notting Hill, ridiculously cosmopolitan, so never noticed the difference in colour between people because my mates are ridiculously diverse. So it's important to me because when Naren narrated what MIFA was about, it just was spot on. So we need to do it. It's very important and we've got to be really tangible about how we take this forward.
Brilliant. Thank you, Barry. Thank you for your partnership and thank you for being here today. Curtis, we're old friends, aren't we? We worked together before, one of the Seven Stars alumni. Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing down at Publicis then? Tell me about that.
Yeah, well, having left Seven Stars, I went to work at Publicis and have been there for the best part of, the majority of the decade with a few sabbaticals mixed in between into different worlds. I'm currently the out-of-home group director across the group, so the free agency brands, and work closely with the planning teams and the investment and the activation team.
Awesome. Thank you, Curtis, and thank you everyone here for joining us today. I'm going to look at worried people at the back looking at levels of sound and stuff. Are we cool? Okay, awesome. Just looking worried. That's okay, no problem. So as I say, there's a NABS helpline in the chat if you need to. As we're going through, and welcome to people at home. I probably didn't do that enough. We live in this blended world. Thank you for the over 150 people that have joined us at home as well. So hello. I keep being confused by which camera to look in. I can try and do both at the same time. Right, let's start, shall we? We're going to go through a bit of a three themes thing. So we're going to talk about people's experience, how they join here, what they do. Then we're going to talk a bit about the challenges, how we're addressing them, what brilliant, awesome companies like Talon doing, what's going on at Publicis. And then we're going to end up trying to be a bit positive, which sometimes I get a bit moody, talking about the role of outdoor in addressing and driving that change. So we're going to talk a bit about that as well today. And then I might take a couple of breaths. So, Asia, I'm going to start with you. Very excited today I am. So tell us how you found Talon. Where were you before? Why did you join the industry? Tell us about that journey a bit, please.
Yeah, of course. So I joined the industry in 2015. I saw an advertisement on O2 Go Think Big. So O2 Go Think Big is a website which encourages people from diverse backgrounds to get into the industry. So I saw an advert for MediaCom Exec Scheme. So it was the first ever MediaCom Exec Scheme. And it was like, are you creative? And I was like, yeah, that's me. Are you analytical? I was like, no. So I applied anyway. And when I was applying, I went on the website and I saw a woman who looked like me. And I was like, that was the first time I ever saw someone who looked like me, a CEO, Karen Blackett. So I was like, of course, yeah, I'm going to apply. So I applied, there was like 250 applicants and they whittled it down to 23. So I was one of the 23 who joined in October 2015. And it was an 18-month placement around the different parts of the business at MediaCom. So I did 6 months in various roles in order to find out where suited me and where was the best place. And that's where I fell in love with Out of Home. So I did that, and then I was at MediaCom for nearly touching 5 years. And then I moved to Talon because I just wanted a change of pace and just go further into Out of Home and just work with some of the brilliant clients Talon have, and also to win awards because I know they had a strong creative solutions arm, so I definitely wanted to get involved. So that was my introduction into the industry.
Awesome. And Barry didn't put you off?
Oh, no.
So Barry, look, I think thanks for that, Asia. I think when you talked about, you looked at this on the website MediaCom and you saw people that look like you. We know that that's really important, right? We know that looking up and saying, oh well, that's for them, so it might be for me. And even the Seven Stars website, you sometimes look at it and see a sea of similar faces. I think it is important to make sure you're representative of the place that people are coming to. Barry, from your perspective, obviously well done on finding brilliant talent like Asia. Tell us about what's the difference in making a more diverse workforce at Talon?
Well, it's really important. 25 years previous to Talon at Omnicom, who I think did a brilliant job of doing that. I was very proud of what the guys did there, so I wanted to follow that here. The guys already had a great programme, but what they've moved forward in with a really developed HR team is looking at things like unconscious and conscious bias, because I think that plays a big role. And you can do that through screening, very careful screening, removing names and details at the top end. So you're just reading, why do you want to work here, and some simple questions. And also some software to make sure that the language that's being used is relevant for everybody. And that removes the bias. And we've used that very, very well over the last year. And I think that's really important because everything that Naren spoke to me about when we were talking about MIFA, for me, had to have tangibility. Everything we did had to have an outcome. Everything had to have some evidence that what we were doing had results against it. Otherwise, it's tokenism, and we didn't want that. So we've driven that. We're very, very careful about how we approach equal opportunities. You've got to make that tangible. So how do you make that real? You've got to have that diversity showing in what you did. You mentioned websites. You've also got to have people in your interviewing process. You've got to have people as it carries on the processes, so that people can feel comfortable that you do what you say. Because there's a lot of people that have stuff on the tin and it isn't like that. So we want to be authentic. And we measure it. So, there's people, Asia and a number of other people that we'll talk to, as well as all of the staff, to get a very clear view on, is the human element of what we're trying to do within our culture real? Because that's tangible and it's measurable. And we track it. So it's not something that you can avoid. Everybody is involved. We don't demand involvement. It's you enter it, you obviously very... nobody's asking your name and details, so you're giving it to us, and there's no callback for why did you say that. So there's that degree of authenticness to it, and again, the tracking is, are we doing the right things? More importantly, are our colleagues telling us that we're doing the right things, and can you see the evidence in the company? So I'm really pleased with how we developed that. Thanks,
Barry. I think the whole evidence piece is, for me, the most important thing that you talked to there. Obviously, it's all important, but if you can't measure it, you can't track your progress, you don't know how we're doing. And one of the things that we're fearful of at MIFA, it's probably fair to say MIFA colleagues, is that the all-in census, which was a fantastic initiative, that's now every 2 years. And I know MIFA's just launched MIFA Measures, I think we're going to talk about in a month or so, but how do we make sure that we're holding each other and our colleagues to account, right? How do you make sure that all of those big grandiose gestures that we all made that said this is what we're going to do about things are happening? And I think that's where the measurement piece comes in. And we talk about it in November, right? We say most companies, if they publish their stats, which not most companies don't, they won't look great. Your stats won't look brilliant right now. Businesses you work in won't look fantastic. However, what can start to look fantastic is the direction of travel, the fact that you're moving forward. And what we saw in some of the stats is some of those numbers are actually moving backwards. And I think that's why we just need to keep the conversation going, keep moving. So Barry, what you talk about is awesome. Curtis, talk about the numbers. You, again, as a member of MIFA, we've talked about the all-in census and the fact that we've got some tangible numbers for the first time. Churn amongst people of colour has never been higher. I say that without knowing, because we've never measured it. We've never measured it before. Tell me about why you think that churn is so high. Tell me why why people are coming in and then leaving.
It's a tricky question, isn't it? Really, to be candid about it.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened over the last 2 years in particular has actually amplified what some have been probably issues that have really existed for a long period of time. I guess speaking specifically in terms of the out-of-home sector, we've had a particular hit as a result of the last couple of years that's quite distinctive to us as a result of people not being able to leave their houses and leave their homes. And I think it's been a challenge to keep people in our industry engaged and motivated over the last 2 years. And I talk to the leadership in my business and in my unit, but also across the wider group about how that particularly has disproportionately had an impact on younger people. So if this is 2 years of the 4 years you've been in this industry, it's 50% of your career so far. So how is it that you're able to, and their experiences are different as well. So the experiences of younger people are different to older people. And I think trying to look at our industry through various different lenses gives people a better understanding, a better worldview. So that was just looking at it in terms of age group and length of time in the industry. What does it mean in terms of looking at it in terms of ethnic background? How does that graph against a social demographic look? How does that graph against a sense of your interrelationships and your network within the industry? I'll be honest, like my network as a result of MIFA has increased like tenfold. And I'm someone who's worked in the industry for about 15 years, and it's like, forget people who just look like me, people who are of influence that have similar ideas and similar aspirations to me, as well as giving me a conversation and talking point to bring to my colleagues. How do we make this a better place for people to work, particularly for out of home? Why? Because it's a community-based medium. It's a medium that sits on someone's doorstep. It's their train station, it's their tube station, it's their street corner, it's the bus they catch. So we have like an added responsibility as a sector in order to make sure that we are representing the communities that ultimately is the infrastructure that we service.
Curtis, I love it. And I remember working together now, how eloquent you speak as well. So no, I love the fact you talk about network, and I think network is really important in people's organisations, right? And that's, I think, what Curtis is speaking to there is churn comes because people feel they don't have a network. And I think it's all on us when we think about our teams, when we talk about people who work with us, are we being a welcoming place? Are we making sure that we're thinking about everybody's experience and where they're coming from and what's important to them? And I think that's where MIFA is great. So people who are on the core, people here are not part of MIFA, it costs nothing to join, and we're a half decent bunch, and we talk and we express feelings and fears and things that are going on in our lives, and ask questions that occasionally you might not feel confident enough to ask to your boss or to your colleague who sits next to you. So join MIFA. It's something that we're trying to build and grow. How many members now, Naren?
Just over 400.
400, right? So that network thing and that feeling of belonging is why people are leaving. They don't feel they have that feeling, therefore they leave. Which of course you would.
Liam, I think just stressing the importance of community, and I'll always remember watching the Euro finals and the 3 black players missed the penalty, and the WhatsApp group for MIFA went nuts. Right? All of a sudden, a lot of our black colleagues going, oh my God, it's going to be awful for us tomorrow. We're going to get loads of abuse. We're all in there going, listen, hopefully things will be all right. And it's moments like that where you go, that's what we've created, where people are out there supporting each other. And these are people who, I was saying today, I've only probably met 50 people from MIFA out of 400. And yet we've managed to kind of create this thing where people feel safe and supported, which is brilliant, actually.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm not going to speak for you. I wouldn't have thought about that, really. I would have thought, you know, if you're a United fan, you're definitely going to get some grief on Monday, but you wouldn't think because of the colour of your skin, you're going to walk into work and people are going to heckle you. I wouldn't have thought that, and, you know, I'm a person of colour. So I think you're right, Naren, that power that comes from network is really important. We need that authenticity, Barry, that you talk about. Naren, while I'm on you, so a lot of arguably, businesses will bring people in at a junior level, and it's probably easier to start there, and it's probably easier to make that route in. Why isn't that happening as much at the C-suite, at the top level? And the reason I ask is every time the campaign Movers and Shakers, you know, the old thing comes out, Movers, whatever it's called, and you scroll through, and it's become. There was a time when that looked different for a short time, and now it's back to how it used to look, right? C-suite person, they're probably going to be white. C-suite person, and look, I don't mean any offence to white colleagues who are here and part of our community today, but why is it so hard to get people of colour into those top jobs?
Yeah, I think it takes time. I think Mediacom were the first company that went out and they said 50% of our intakes are going to be people from ethnic minority backgrounds at junior level, right? And I remember speaking to Josh about it at the time, going, God, that's amazing. And, you know, 2 years on, I asked Josh, how's it going? And he goes, we can't hold on to them, you know, and it's literally people coming in and you look up and you just go, God, there's no one that looks like me, you know, I don't feel like I belong. And then since then, you know, Mediacom have kind of created like kind of where senior execs sponsor incoming talent, so they try and hold on to them really, because it's you know, it's difficult. I think, you know, one of the partnerships we have is with the ARC Academy, where 88% of their students are black or Asian, and most of these kids have never left their borough. Forget about going into an office, you know. So I think that churn at the moment is a real issue, and I think if we can get that, you know, I think one of the things I remember Josh saying to me, he goes, if we can keep on with this, in 10 years' time, we'll solve the problem. I just think we've got to be a bit smarter, look at alternative industries. There are certain functions around operations, finance, where we can look legal support, where we can go the other side and, you know, over-recruit in those roles. Because otherwise, I think the other thing we're doing as an industry is just stealing from one another, you know, and, you know, just, you know, it's what I hear a lot at the moment is, oh, I'm on the hunt for ethnic minorities to join our business. And I'm like, well, that's not easy. There's not a lot of us to kind of get, really. So that's the problem. So
there's not enough in advertising industry.
Correct.
So we need to look, I hear what you're saying, so we need to look broader.
Yeah.
But then the sponsorship is something that needs to happen more, right? So hopefully everyone definitely will have heard of mentorship. Hopefully people are starting to hear this sponsorship thing, right? And Diana, I'm going to ask you about this a little bit, because the concept of sponsorship is, how do you find somebody in your organisation? It might be a female talent, it might be a person of colour, it might be someone who's disabled or less abled. Again, I told you I don't always use the right language. So sponsorship is you take that person, whether they're the right person for the job or not, you beat the drum for that person. You are the person that goes, I'm going to get person X to that job, no matter what. And it's a really interesting concept, because what it does, it sounds anti-competitive, right? But we're starting from such a low base in this issue that it has to be that way, right? So we have to sponsor our people and open the door for more opportunities to give people, you need to raise that platform, right? So Diana, tell us about, from your experience sorry, I'm pointing a bit, so I should do the old politician thing. From a NAB's perspective, Curtis talks about the last 2 years has been tough. You know, from a charitable organisation, I get it's been tough, especially if you rely on getting out and shaking the tin, and you never shook the tin, but you know what I mean, doing those sort of events things. I have too. So how are NABs hearing people's issues? And how are you helping? What do we need to do?
Yeah, so when we've had the pandemic, we were looking after people mainly who were coming to us with emotional support, and the mental health that we mentioned earlier. Then pandemic, it was redundancy, furlough, and now it's back to that emotional support. But I guess the challenge NAB's had is when you look at the people who are coming to us for support, we can't get below that data. We don't start every call with a whole demographic analysis, so we didn't know really who was coming to us, and we needed to know. We needed to know whether our services were the right services for our industry and for everybody in our industry. So we had to do a bit of a deep dive and look into that. We've done a partnership with Media for All and some couple of other organisations, Advertising and Bricks and Finishing School, to really get under the skin of some of these issues. So we know from the All-In census that 27% of people who were Asian in the industry who replied to that survey are saying that they were thinking about leaving because of a lack of inclusion, basically, a lack of feeling like they belong. And you've got to get to underneath that to work out what you do. And belonging is, I mean, it's easy to say, oh, people don't feel like belong. That'd be nice to feel like I've got belonging. It's a fundamental human need. If you don't feel like you belong, your emotional health, your mental health, it's not in a good place. I'm ex-Barnardo's. I've worked with children's development for a long time. A sense of belonging is one of the most key development needs of a child. So it's in all of us. It's part of everybody. And the research that we've done, which we're going to be doing some more sharing of this in a couple of weeks' time. So I've promised the team back. I'm not allowed to tell everybody everything else. I'll be shot when I get back, definitely. But one of the big issues here is we are not nurturing the talent that we're bringing in. And you talk about sponsorship. Sponsorship is just about getting equity, about getting people up to a level, up to a place, because there isn't equity at the moment. We're making our industry look exciting, we're recruiting people, but we're not really following it all through. So it's about making sure that the programs that we put in place, we don't just count the numbers on the programs, it's the whole process. You started talking about it earlier, but it's that whole system that we think about that supports people through. And one of the other key things that come out of it is about promotion. Getting that first promotion is key. What are we doing to develop people to give them that opportunity so they have a fair and equitable chance of getting it? Sponsorship can come in there. Active allyship can come in there. It's an interchangeable phrase, I would say. But certainly, our processes are not transparent. How do people get promoted? How do they get to the next stage? How do they get a chance at that job? We've just got to get better at doing things well and properly. Open recruitment, and you talked about different ways of using, screening and things. But we've got to get better at that. We still sort of have a system that works the way it always has. And organisations are changing this all the time, and I'm not saying nobody's doing that, but that's come through as a fundamental issue. People just don't know how to navigate it yet, and that's where the support is, will help people come through.
Could I build just for a second on that point? Because there's a couple of words in there that are just so meaningful, they resonate. The first one's in the inclusivity, because inclusivity comes via education, and we've just not very good at education. So I'm Irish immigrant, so I've experienced a ton of whatever you want to call it in my life, but things that shouldn't be said. So I experienced it, and I've heard it all through my life growing up in Notting Hill. But the inclusivity is not there, and that comes through education. The workshops that we're looking at doing, we've done several. They're good, but they don't go far enough. They need to be more tangible, because you've said allyship, that's brutally, and the belong part. So if I talk to my own friends who are damn sight cleverer than I am, but didn't come into advertising because they were people of colour and they didn't think it was for them. But they're brutally clever. They didn't feel that they belonged. They didn't feel it was for them. So I think the belong part, we need to be much more tangible in education when we're running workshops. What do these things mean? And when you walk away, how are you going to measure them? Because otherwise the workshops are lip service and we're being tokenistic. We at Talon will not do that. We had a lot of groups here internally that ground up. There's no titles in there. I'm there as a member and somebody else is leading it. It could be junior, it could be a manager, but it certainly isn't the senior end of the company. They're in there to support and help, but they don't drive it. Our anti-racism group, which were pre-COVID was an anti-racism group, has been renamed to Belong. It's now Belong. And we want to make sure people in the human nature of what we get that, because we're going to measure it. We want that group to do stuff, we want to drive the inclusivity, and we want to have an output that people can measure. So our colleagues in the agency can say, you don't live up to what you're selling, because that's how you make change happen. That's the education we need.
Yeah, I like that. And I think the whole being held to account is a really important part. You need to be able to have Asia come and say, Barry, that's not happening. So, Asia, is it happening? What's going on at Talent? What are the things that are brilliant? What are the things that you that are doing really, really well? And where do you think there's still opportunities? What's the next thing on your list?
I think Talon are doing well is listening, so I can go to Barry and go XYZ, I want to do this, I want to do that. I can say to the people team, one of the things we said was want to do outreach projects. They said, yeah, great, go on it. So we are launching an outreach project with working with MIFA, and that's going to kick off Q2, Q3 this year. Another thing we said to the people team was, I saw that Narend's got a new organisation called MIFA. I think this is something we should be involved with. No questions asked. Yeah, we should do it. Like every suggestion we've said and put forward to the people team and to Talon, they've said, yeah, no questions asked. There's never been a no so far. There was a facilitator called Bilal. When I was at MediaCom, I saw that he did a few sessions there, and I was like, I think he's doing great work in this industry, and he can help facilitate sessions and help educate us as a company. Talon said, yeah, cool, let's do it. So there's always, so far as I was being asked to say, yes, yes, yes. In terms of things we can do to be better, as Barry said, it's making sure that all actions are tangible and making sure it's not just lip service. So after we do a lot of training sessions, so in 2021 alone, we held 9 training sessions on diversity inclusion, and we've got furthermore in the pipeline for 2022. However, we do need to make sure that everyone is getting involved, everyone is attending the trainings, everyone is holding themselves accountable. And one of the ways Talon is going to do that is they've just announced that diversity inclusion is going to be part of our KPIs. And we need to have 10% of our learning time attributed to diversity and inclusion. So I think that is positive, and it just showcases that's how we are going to move forward and how we are going to be tangible.
Thanks, Asia. I was going to say, Barry says yes to a lot. But look, it's really, thank you, and thanks for sharing that. I think it's really easy. I sit here as a grouch quite a lot, go, it's not good enough. But I think it's probably important that we do acknowledge the work that's going on across the industry. There is a ton of stuff being talked about. There are more initiatives. There is a lot of open source, like there's no one here for WPP, but I'm sure there are on the call. They're open sourcing a lot of their stuff. They're letting other organisations learn, and I know that other organisations will be doing the same. So look, that's definitely to be commended. So I think my job is to be an antagonist, so I will do that. Curtis, being the antagonist, tell me what else can be done?
Sure. Well, a lot.
Good. Okay, right, let's go.
Much more. There we go. A lot and a much more. I think probably the most incredible thing that I've seen in our industry is when leadership within Publicis acknowledged that they were not up to speed with these issues. And it brought amazing capital in terms of that honesty and that openness and hope. Funny enough, Hope is the name of the diversity and inclusion group within Starcom, which I sit on. I don't even work in Starcom officially. I work with Starcom, and I love all my agency brands. And it was my last agency, but and that's not just across, ethnicity and race. That's across, disability, parental affairs, LGBTQ, and it's a beautiful group of people who just want to make their agency and their industry a better place. And I've seen changes in policy. In the last couple of years, the group hired a head of D&I, and it's a bit bittersweet, but one of my former out-of-home colleagues had left and moved into content, and now is the D&I manager within Publicis Group. Shout out to Sam if you're watching. Speak to you tomorrow. And I've seen people tell amazing stories about their lives and their experiences working in this industry. I am neurodiverse as well. I'm dyslexic, and it was incredible to hear people talk about their experiences of neurodiversity and race as part of the business resource group Enable. And on those levels of intersectionality, there's unity, there's connection, and there's a drive that by dealing and managing with issues in relation to race, it makes it a better company, organisation, industry for everybody. It's, you know, media for all, right? That's the point.
So, look, I totally agree with that, and I think the interesting thing, I'm trying to get the right sentence out of my mouth, which is difficult sometimes. When people say things only happen if it costs you money, that's not the phrase. I was thinking what it costs. It's only principle if it costs you money. That's what I was trying to think of. Do we think that clients, Curtis, and clients have more of a responsibility, just off topic, to mandate to their agencies that we're only going to work for you if you're truly diverse, if you're an organisation that's doing the right things? Do you think clients should have more say about who they appoint? Yes, I agree too.
There's an irony with that question, isn't there, coming from us? Because what is it that we do every day? Right? We look at insights about how people actually live in their lives, right? What are their needs? What are their wants? And when we try to, on behalf of our brands, communicate to those people and show how the products and services that our clients offer relate to them. The piece of work that was led by Kinetic and some of the media owners, including Clear Channel, in terms of having more diverse advertising, it's just mind-blowing. Like, this is a question around strategic and competitive advantage. When people say it's good for society, good for business, they're the same thing when done right. So it's not a matter of, it's fundamental to what we do, to answer your question.
Yeah.
It's not, it's not icing on the cake, it's the full cake.
Yeah, and I think, I don't know, the Clear Channel thing that last week that I was meant to go to, but then people did come back raving about that. I don't know what the stat is like. It's the channel Outdoors, the channel that delivers the most back to the community. Is that right? Is that the stat?
Yeah, 50% of...
50%. That sounds too much like a round number, but okay then. But I think, again, it's important, right? What we do for a living is talk to the nation, talk to people. So if we're talking to people, let's do it with inclusivity. Barry?
I think that's a lovely thing that you just said, and it's provocative because we've got an agency world that we know is pitching itself into a corner again, and there are a number of things in there which are being brought out as new KPIs, new success metrics. If we can go after B Corp and all this other sustainability, to your question, why wouldn't this be added? Why wouldn't the evidence of, are you really living to what you say you're doing, be added as part of, because it's an equation that sits in a spreadsheet. And given the other things they're having to prove, I think this is ahead of B Corp, personally. I think it's ahead of everything else that get added, including sustainability, which is controversial. But yes should be the answer. It should be added.
Yeah,
clients should take the agenda.
And the interesting thing, I didn't mean to talk over you, but the most interesting thing about it should be ahead of B Corp and sustainability, and it is the thing that most pays back to your bottom line if you do it. That is the bit that I failed to compute, is if you have a more diverse workforce, you make more money. It's just a no-brainer. That's what Barry keeps saying. Yes. Naren, what's the biggest thing you could do today to change things before we move on to our final topic?
God, one thing. I'd say for me, I know we just talked about clients, but they feed us. I've had a few conversations with clients where they're saying we're looking to put diversity onto the grid. We all know the grids, and they've talked about taking certain media owners off briefs because they're not very diverse. But so far it's just talk. I think if we have one or two that go, so for me it would be a big advertiser just going, you know what, I only want to deal with agencies and media owners. They might not mean, they're probably not reflective of society at the moment, but they're on a journey and demonstrate it to me, and it's real for them. So that would be my wish, because I think if we all we're fed by client spend, really.
Money talks.
Money talks, really. So.
Talks. Asia, so on that Money Talks piece and the 50% stat, when you're sitting down creating wonderfully crafted outdoor campaigns for your clients, how can what you do there make a difference to the conversation we're having today?
I feel that I feel that, so with outdoor advertising, 50p in a pound, like, there's a lot of people who do a lot in terms of outdoor. So one of the people in terms of like media owners is Clear Channel. So Clear Channel are like stand up for me in the sense that they have, they support diverse communities, they support black-owned business, so Cocoa Girl, Cocoa Boy, they support Cephas Williams with the 6 black men, and they also support those who are homeless and put them in jobs.
Also support MIFA.
And support me, the lovely MIFA, and they support like a range of organisations. So in terms of like media planning, I feel like it's great that we do as an outdoor industry, that we do support a lot in terms of the local communities, but it would be great to see some of the local communities come into media planning and media buying and into that agency. So it's great to see how the effects of supporting the likes of MIFA, Brixton Finishing School, that how they're coming up in the business, and also how they rise to senior levels. So I know you said earlier about Josh and the conversation and how it's going to take 10 years. I'm not too sure where we are in the 10-year cycle.
Probably about 6 years in, I'd say that.
And I'm probably in the industry for like 6 years as well.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I came up with the question today was lack of people of colour, was when I looked around, I was thinking, where is everyone? I got to a point where I was like, actually, I was trying to list people, and I could only think of a few people in media owners. I listed one, and my whole hand is probably up 3 or 4. And as Curtis said, with MIFA, there's like a massive network. So to be included in that and see there's more to life than what I've seen in my small window. So I feel like we need to start seeing more of the cycle and seeing more of a fruition of people come through. And when it will come through, that will help in terms of like media planning, because as we were saying, like diversity and diverse for helps business, but business is community. So it will help clients and it will help everyone in the sense that be more like representative of real life. And it's like when people say, oh, EastEnders, like it's not really reflective of real life. We want outdoor and media planning to be reflective of real life and by real life people. Yeah.
I think there's, I mean, most of what you said was brilliant. I think there's a few things. So on the Clear Channel piece, it's an unfair question to ask you, but a question for all of us maybe is, should Clear Channel get a greater share of advertiser money because of what they're doing? Yes. Barry?
Yes, and not least because Bonnie's here. I think that there's an element that you talked about earlier, which is fantastic, which Asia touched on too. We talk about tangibility and holding feet to fire and not tokenism. If you're going to live this and make it work, you've got to have measures. There's a measure. Should they get more? Yeah. Listen, at the risk of upsetting Dallas...
You can't say that while smiling, though.
At the risk of upsetting Dallas, because Bonnie will be on me, at the risk of upsetting Dallas and all the others, Phil and all the other guys that are running the other outdoor vendors, I think if people are living true to the sentiment, that's the reality that we should be following, because that education piece that we speak about is really important. We can extend that through here. We had a brilliant board meeting a couple of weeks ago down at IPG's office, and there was a moment where, shared by the MIFA team, we've all got social. Are we using that to spread the message? People are listening to us, we've got friends. That very quickly, that could mushroom out. We've got to get the message out and be much more stringent about it. That's evidence from Bonnie. That's putting your money where your sentiment is. It's great.
More money for Bonnie. So, and on that, Asia, so in terms of, because I within what you were saying, what I'm hearing is you're 6 years in. Naren says it's going to take 10 years, but we're 6 years, with clocks ticking, and we're still looking around, there's not enough people. Yeah. What are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? Otherwise, we can talk about it, we can stay here all night, everybody. There's no tubes anyway. But what are we going to do?
I think what we're going to do is hold ourselves accountable and nurture those young people coming in, and nurture people at all levels of the business. I remember when I was at one point in my career, I was working with someone, and they were a male, and one of the reasons why they said they left was they felt lonely. And at that point, I thought, how could I do more? Like, we're still friends, and he was one of the closest people to me at the time. But I was like, what could I have done to do more? So I think for everyone, we need to look within and think, what can we do to do more and to be allies and educate ourselves, and that's how we're going to move forward. And in terms of should Clear Channel get all media spent, all the budget, I think the easiest answer would be yes, but no, that's to be quite direct and blunt. No, I think it's not just, I just feel like it's wider than that. There's loads of different pieces of the puzzle, and Clear Channel are doing great, and they're like accelerating in that, but there is other people are doing more. Not everyone shouts about how much they do, because I know at one point, I'm not sure it's still running, but Global did have an academy for young people, which I did a bit of work on.
Partners as well, right?
Yeah, Global are partners as well.
So, no, and Asia, you're totally right.
Doing a lot of good work.
No, I hear that, and I think you know, I'm not saying Clear Channel's shouting louder. I think there are organisations that are doing great stuff, and we definitely recognise that. But it's got to result in, let's see, more people. Curtis, what's the one thing that Publicis is doing?
The one thing?
Yeah, what are you doing that you're like, we nailed this, this is working, everybody learn?
There's an open apprenticeship scheme which anyone can access, and it uses a lot of the resources that the industry's already created. So I believe Brixton Finishing School is a partner to amplify that. So they're putting their money where their mouth is in terms of being able to create opportunities for people to understand our industry, learn about our industry, and, you know, to some extent give them some form of certification that, you know, if you say you've done that and you've done it through Publicis, it holds some water, it holds some weight, it qualifies you as someone who's interested in our sector. So that's very good. In terms of recently, they've done or they're conducting a piece of work at the moment with Diverse Matters to talk about people's lived experiences in order to create some data. You know, there's obviously surveys and quantifiable data, but quantifiable data is also hugely important. Or as someone says, a worm's eye view as well as the bird's eye view. I do want to just, if I can circle back as well, like, there is huge value for organisations for speaking and engaging with marginalised groups, because it gives them perspectives. It holds a mirror to the reality of their organisations. This is value add. You know, we're in the cultural capital business, right? This isn't just about doing the right thing because out of your you know, because you woke up one day and felt you wanted to do the right thing. This is about strategic advantage for your organisations and on behalf of your clients. You know, I'm an expert in Englishness, Britishness, like no one can really contest me with. And it's not because I've got one foot in and I've got one foot out. Yeah. So I can understand it from a perspective of how it relates and so forth. And I feel that's brought as much advantage to my journey and to the opportunities that I've been fortunate to get as my experience in digital advertising.
And that we don't totally forget, and everyone's touched on it a little bit, that we're at heart a communications business, and we fail to do the basics that around our own organisation sometimes. So I think that's really powerful. I think we're going to sum up. Sarah, have we had questions coming in? Sometimes they can be a bit of a lean back bunch, but have we got?
We have one.
Okay.
And that is from Anna Clark. So Anna is asking if there are any industries that you see that are doing this well. You know, is there any sector that we can actually learn from?
Awesome. So I'm not sure if we can we hear Sarah? Okay, so thanks, Sarah. So Anna Clark, I'm not sure where you're from, but Anna says there must be some industries doing well. What are the industries that we can learn from? Where are they? Who are they? Diana, you've been, you know, you talked about your charitable experience. You know, what you do in NABS must cover across. Tell us a bit about where you think there are sectors getting it right.
I think we're doing well, actually. I think, you know, I would just say from Naren's point earlier, like, it takes time. I think the advertising industry really owned this problem 18 months, 2 years ago with following Black Lives Matter, pulled together. Yes, it might have been late, and yes, it's taking time, but I do think we're in it and we're doing it, and I think people are doing it, and I think that's really important. And embracing training, doing all the things that we're doing, supporting media for all. I think we're moving. I think the challenge for us to learn from other industries is to keep going, because we like chasing shiny stars here. You know, we're big problem solvers. We solve our clients' problems all the time, but we move on once we've solved a problem. And you know, we're currently working on sustainability as a massive issue for the industry. We've got things going on in Ukraine which are messing up people's businesses. You know, there's so much going on. We will keep moving on. So we just have to learn to stick with what we're doing and keep doing it and fix it. And you have to just go deep. Yeah. You know, if I go back to when I was at Bernardo's, you know, we were doing blind CVs 15 years ago, you know, so we're late. We're just late, but keep going and focus. And you know, we've just been doing at NAB's anti-racism training with the whole team. We've put the whole team through it. It's been really challenging, really difficult to hear, really difficult to learn. But unless you train your people deeply to really understand the challenges and the issues, you aren't in a position to tackle them. You're not in a position to respond in the way you're describing, in that sense of understanding what lived experience of people is. So I think we just have to make sure we're investing and we stay investing. And then you can apply quite a lot of that learning across a lot of other issues as well, because actually there are histories for so many different backgrounds that have parallels. You know, nothing's the same, but there are parallels, and I think we just have to just make sure we're really doing what we've said we're going to do, and do it well. And the information's out there. The people are out there to train. There are, you know, leading thinkers in our industry. We all share. You know, we play together and we work together with this industry. We compete and play, so we can. I think the collaboration is really important.
So the industry's doing okay. Need to stay the course.
Yeah, I think the key difference for us is we don't attract the talent early on. So, you know, most minorities, they want to go into law, finance, accountancy, medicine, and I've actually reached out to people in those organisations, and although they get more people coming in, they still have the issue with churn and lived experiences and people not feeling like they get on. I think the advantage those industries have is minorities. You know, most people from minority backgrounds, their parents will be going, you know, you need a career for life, and that's kind of finance, and that's, you know, where all my friends are. Yeah.
It's a disappointment if you end up in media, right?
Well, I still am. My in-laws still don't know what I do, or, you know. So.
You may, yeah.
So.
Sorry. Hi, yeah, I'm Luke, Chief Plan Officer at Talon. So look, I think firstly, I'm sure I speak for many people here and on the call. It's upsetting to hear that people of race have not been felt welcome in the industry. I won't say how many years, but far too many. But that's not a great reflection, and certainly something I personally will take away from this. But I had a question for Naren. I'm a keen sports fan, and we know the issues of diversity of people making pathways into coaching. We've seen the recent controversy in cricket over the last 12 months, and we're going to see a radical reform, I think, of that sporting environment. What's your view on the sort of Rooney Rule? Now, clearly that's something I'm sure we will want to go down to, like a forced aspect, but given the struggles that you seem to be portraying, particularly getting people into the industry and staying, particularly the work your group's doing, hopefully we can now convince people to feel welcome and convince them to stay. But clearly it sounds like there's an issue in initially getting people through the door. What would be your thoughts on something like that? I know that probably wouldn't be
So Naren, just for the people at home who won't have heard the question, so I think what Luke from Talon's just asked a question about sporting analogy, the Rooney Rule, the language, you know, should we enforce a percentage, a quota, thank you, Naren. So tell us what your thoughts are. I think a lot of companies already are. You know, I know a lot of media companies at executive level are, you know, they are now being targeted, which is, okay, you know, your percent of your team is 5%, right, next year it needs to be 6% or 6.5%. That's fairly common, right? The problem we have is nothing's published. You know, the only people who published it was Sky. They did it last year, I think, where
went out and told the whole market, this is where we are, this is where we want to get to by 2025. We're going to report on this every year. And I think it comes back to what you're saying, Liam. It's around numbers. I mean, the whole thing of affirmative action in the States, you know, there's a big debate. You know, did it work? Well, we had a black, you know, president in my lifetime, which I thought we'd never have. When I lived in the States in '84, and you know, if you'd said to me there we'd have a black president in your lifetime, I'd say you're nuts. But I think you know, that's an extreme measure, having affirmative action, and actually, I think I'd like companies to take it on themselves first. And I think there's enough research out there. You know, just read the McKinsey report on, you know, diverse companies produce better results. You know, I think just people have difficulty drawing that line between, you know, more diverse talent equals better profitability. What's the proof? Go read the reports, really. So that's what I say.
Yeah. And Naren, just building on that, sorry, Sarah, just building on that, whataboutery. Have you heard that phrase? Whataboutery. Who's that? Anyone heard that phrase? It's what about me? What about I'm a person of X colour and this age, and if it's all about those people of colour, what about me? And whatever there's an issue of whatever, people go, well, what about me? So what do we say to that? I know what I say to it, but I wonder, what do we do? You probably understand the subtext what I'm asking.
Yeah, I do, and you know, I think for me, what we're about, MIFA, is, you know, what's the problem we're trying to solve? You know, we're trying to solve a problem about, you know, a lack of representation in media, a lack of talent at C-suite, and 30% of ethnic minorities looking to leave the industry while we are desperately trying to get more talent in. And that's the problem we're trying to solve. You know, and that's, you know, come and help.
Yeah. We need to raise the floor first.
Yeah.
For people of colour. That's what it's about. Sorry, we had another question.
One last question.
Oh, go on then. Well, a question for Naren, really, for the group. I suppose a couple of things that resonate with something Curtis said. Just around personal stories. Even just sat here listening to all of you guys, you know, and Barry talking about an Irish immigrant, and, you know, Naren's story and AJ's story coming out of MediaCom stuff. How do we get more personal stories? It seems to me that one of the big challenges around belonging, which is a massive issue, is around people hearing individuals' personal stories. Yeah. There's a challenge for Naren in the organisation because it's shouting out at me is if you can get more personal stories out there, you can create more belonging. And I found that one of the most valuable parts of this session. So I'm going to throw that at you.
I think the one that always sticks with me, and Amy and I were talking about this earlier, there was a guy called Sam Patel who worked at PrimeSite, group head at Talon actually, and Sam's uncle's my mate, and he just said, listen, he's looking for work, young guy, you know, wants to work in sales. I'm like, Indian bloke wanting to work in sales? That's a bit weird to start off with, but come on in. Anyway, came in, I met him, I said, really good, so I put him into the team for an interview. I said, listen, can you interview this guy? And they met him, and you know, Sam likes football. He likes a drink, as most people in Talon know. Really personable. Anyway, interview comes. Guy comes. He's going, yeah, just can't see how he's going to fit in. And you know, it's quite bizarre because I only thought about that story a couple of years ago, and I kind of gone, God, that's weird. I mean, this guy turned out to be one of our top performers, but didn't make it through. I mean, Sam then worked for the direct sales team, because I then put him in touch with them. They interviewed him. He got in, was our top performer on direct sales, and then the agency team said, "Can we have him?" You know, but if that's going on at PrimeSite, where I was the CEO, I mean, what hope does he have anywhere else, really? And I think I kind of kicked myself a bit that I didn't start this kind of journey earlier. Kind of, you know, started talking about diversity quite late in my career. But these are experiences. This is a real story, really.
What I like about the question is the storytelling piece. We are storytellers, that's what we do, and the way you create empathy is telling stories, and that definitely is powerful. I think we've talked about it from a MIFA perspective. We should have more of our stories on on our website, in our comms. I think someone asked me last time we were together, oh, well, where are you from? We just thought you were Tan, and then you tell a story and you explain where so I definitely think that storytelling is super important. And I think we made it, guys. I think we're at 59 minutes. You can see Naren's looking at the beer tap.
I'm driving.
Don't worry. I don't know, I was going to ask for closing comments, but I don't know if Asia, you started us off, did you want to say anything before I do a final Jerry Springer wrap-up?
Yeah, of course. So in terms of like personal stories, I think personal stories has always been quite hard to communicate in the sense that, like for me personally, I didn't start opening up and allowing myself to be more vulnerable about my lived experience within my career until after what had happened following Black Lives Matter. I remember when I was in one of the Belong meetings and I was talking and I was listening to a few people and I literally just had to turn my camera off and just went off. And then I remember someone rang me afterwards like, are you okay? You literally just disappeared from that call. And I just said like everything what I've ever bad experience. I had loads of positives, but any bad experiences all just came and hit me at once, like all the pennies had dropped, because that's when I learned about microaggressions, and as someone of colour, I didn't really know what that meant. And I remember at a point in my career that I went for lunch and with like media owners, and I was super excited to go, and everyone was talking about what they got up to the weekend, and then someone remarked that they had a party and someone dressed up in blackface and everyone found it amusing, and obviously I was the only person of colour at this table, and I was like, oh. And I remember I didn't say anything because I was like really uncomfortable. I remember I kept that. I remember I told my friend at the time and he was like, oh yeah, that's awful, but then I just moved on. And there has been like a few more incidents within my career where like stuff of that nature has happened, but I always kept it to myself and just moved on, because that's the type of thing, like you just have to brush it off, water off a duck's back. So in terms of personal stories, it is quite hard because you kind of want to be on a level playing field as everyone who you work with, your colleagues who are white. You want to be on the level playing field. You don't want to be like try and get sympathy. You want to sort of like just walk on and just crack on. So in terms of personal stories, I think people are now starting to open up a little bit more and can share their experiences, and it is something that we should do to make everyone aware of what some instances what people have gone through in their career.
Can I just build on that, just because the research that we've got that we'll show in a few weeks, the really insightful point of that from the research is that with asking people to share their stories comes great responsibility. Yeah. Great responsibility to hear the story, great responsibility for trust, mutuality, and that I think has come out. I think that's really interesting when we talk about it a bit more, because we're asking everybody to share stories in all sorts of ways, mental health stories. We're saying it's good to talk about it, but you sort of need a safety net in place as well to make sure that this is really supported. And then the people who are hearing the story have the experience to understand and respond, and not necessarily try to solve the problem, but so I think we'll be sharing some ideas about how NABS is going to help doing that going forward.
That sounds really interesting. Yeah. It's, whenever I go to therapy, you always feel like you're unzipped and you just left a little bit exposed. But so I totally, it's a really alien feeling. So, thank you people who made it in. Lovely to see people's faces, and thank you for everybody at home or wherever you're joining from today. These sessions are recorded, they'll be on YouTube. We're going to split them up and send them out in the socials, I think young people call them. Thank you to our fantastic panellists. It's awesome to hear everybody speak from the heart and talk about where they're from and what they're about, and that for me was personally really enlightening, as these sessions always are. Next time we're together, where are we going to be, Naren?
Next time we're at Media Brands and we are talking about Ramadan. It's the end of March, and it's two things. One part is how should brands think about Ramadan, and the second bit is around how should companies think about their staff as they go through the month of Ramadan. So that's the subject. End of March. There's 200 seats there actually. So
wow. But you all will be here.
Hopefully no tube strike. Can I just say a big thanks? So I just want to say I know what the title of this talk was about, the lack of when outdoor, but I just want to say when when MIFA started getting big, and I'm like, damn, I'm going to need some money. I mean, the first thing I did was call my friends in Out of Home and, Talon, but I want to say Ocean Outdoor, Clear Channel, Global, and I think Rapport, which basically ended up coming through Media Brands, all immediately said, we're here for you, Naren. And that's, we might not be as diverse, but we're a really great business and a great industry to work in, really. So, and that was like 5 calls, really, the fastest 5 calls I've ever made in my life, really. So I just want to say thanks to all of you guys in Out of Home as well, really.
Awesome, thanks Naren, and thanks again to Talon for being our kick-off first ever partner, MIFA Matters. Have a good evening and see you all soon.
See ya.